Hello, thanks so much for joining me and coming back to see how we brought our beautiful lion here to his conclusion, our beauty in the shadows. Okay, so obviously last week, if you haven't watched part one, I do suggest you pop on over and watch part one of this, and you can see obviously how we got it to this stage so far. Obviously last week we got our pencil sketch down. We then sort of, introduced a few colours there and, just got the base of him down really. And so this week, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through everything and basically getting everything richer and darker and sort of, getting all that lovely softness through his mane and things and, bringing him to his finish, as I say. So the first thing I've done is I've gone in with I'm working over to the right-hand side as you look at him first. I want to sort of like establish the difference, how he's going to sit against the background. Obviously, in this particular painting, he really is coming out of the shadows, and those, over to that right-hand side there, it's very dark, and sort of in some places you can't really tell where the line ends and the grasses start, and that's how I want to keep it. So the first thing I'm doing, I want to get that balance over on that right-hand side first. So the first thing I'm doing is I came in with my darkest tone that I'm going to use, and I'm looking at the line and through his areas and whatever, and putting that in all the places I can see. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going backwards and forwards between the different values over on this right hand side to try and establish my balance. So starting off with the darkest, I'm also adding a couple more colours there. I'm now introducing a little bit of browns and sort of more ochre colours really. Now I don't, I want this line to be brown is not necessarily my favourite colour palette, so I don't want him too browny, so I want to sort of keep him these sort of aubergine burgundy colours, which are a beautiful complement to all those gorgeous vivid oranges over on his mane there. And so what you're seeing me doing is coming back, re-establishing those darks and sort of going between those colours, just looking at where all those subtle differences are. Now obviously in those shadows, the differences are subtle in the variations. You're not seeing a whole lot there, but you want to be, really looking at where you do, maybe lighten your photographic reference so you can see a little bit more where those, patches of light and dark are. Because as I say, it's really important to get those right, because even though they're in the shadows, we still want to create form in this line. We're having an optical illusion really. We're trying to create something that's three-dimensional on a two-dimensional surface, and how we're doing that is we're using our different values, basically our different levels of light and dark, in order to help us do that. And this is obviously where a reference photo really does come in handy, especially if you're at the beginning stages, because our eyes do deceive us quite a lot of the time. And if you've got a good reference photo, you can start to see, it's those levels of light and dark that make all the difference. We always talk about values, and they're so important in a painting to give something a three-dimensional feel. So, as I say, working over on that right-hand side there at the beginning, also sort of popping in with my pencil there, to re-establish that eye. I want to make sure that I don't lose that as I go along. So we pop back in, redefine that shape a little bit, and sort of looking, as I say, at the reference value to see where those lights and darks change, so that I'm trying to give his eyebrow form, and, by using levels of light and dark. So I've kind of got to the point that I'm fairly happy with that right-hand side. And as you can see, literally just went backwards and forwards until I felt I had the balance. And now I'm coming over to sort of his main side of things. And the first thing I'm doing is this is a soft pan pastel soft tool, which I find really handy, because what I want to do with his mane and with the grasses or whatever, but his mane in particular, it's thick, it's really, really dense. And so underneath all that, we're not going to be painting every single strand. It's not necessary. And it would take you forever, it takes me a long time to do a painting anyway, let alone if I was to put in every single strand. But what I want to do is get these lovely subtle blends underneath everything, where the sort of colours are merging together rather than sort of being defined. And we come back in later on and we, use our pencil a little bit more. I mean, at the moment I'm doing it again, re-establishing that eye. But in general, leaving my pencil to a little bit later on, to bring out those highlights. And that's it. You're using a combination of soft and hard in order to try and, build up that depth and, then pull out some details as you go along. So introducing some gorgeous colours over there. Obviously his mane, he's got some lovely reds and oranges and things. And that's what I'm doing, trying to get the balance. As I say, I don't want him too browny. I really want to accentuate those reds that are coming through that lovely coat of his. And so, as I say, you saw me coming in with a soft, pan pastel, oh gosh, put my teeth in today, pan pastel tool, just to blend out those areas. I don't really want anything hard at the moment. So, I'll save that till later. I want everything to be really nice and soft and out of focus in that mane, just sort of all those subtle blends going. And as you can see, again, sort of going in with my darks and then, just going backwards and forwards between the values, looking at my reference photo and, as I say, seeing where those patches of light and dark, seeing where things start to transition and, sort of going in at that stage. Then you just saw me then with a paintbrush. Sometimes I use different blending tools, sometimes a pan pastel tool, sometimes my sponge, sometimes my finger, sometimes a stump, and sometimes a little paintbrush, a little soft paintbrush is really great if you're finding you get a little bit heavy in your pastel. Because we've got to be a bit careful because we're mixing some warm and cool colours here together, and we don't want it to end up messy. We want to create those lovely soft blends, but we don't want to be creating mud. Mud's great in certain areas of your picture, but obviously over on that mane, we want to keep that nice and vivid and fresh and bright. And if you notice, whether I'm putting down pastel itself or blending it out, I'm always mindful of, of the direction of things. It's much, much easier. And this is also how it'll help you avoid creating mud as well. If, for example, I was to go down that mane with a sort of vertical stroke and then back across with a horizontal stroke, I'm then going to be really sort of like cross-hatching all of that and making that muddy. So what I'm doing is being really careful and paying attention to the way the fur grows in at any one point, especially in the mane. Obviously it's sort of like it's vertical at the top, horizontal at the side, and sort of coming down at an angle. And try and pay attention to that, and that will help you create those lovely soft blends underneath that will help your painting. As you start to put in more detail. And as you can see, I've started using a few pastel pencils as well. Again, I'm using those as a blending tool and also to put down the odd individual hair. That's what we're doing, just building it up really, and using a combination of different strokes, different levels of hardness, and a pastel pencil also as well is a great way to blend, and sort of like you could, because it's harder, you're just introducing a little bit of pastel to it, and you're just softly blending those colours together. So I've kind of got the balance, I think, at the moment between, my level of light and dark either side, the lines starting to come together. I'm starting to get that pastel on the paper because we're working on a sanded paper. So you need to get a few layers down before it really starts blending and merging nicely together. And you kind of get to feel it as you go along. So now what I'm doing, I'm kind of happy with the colour balances and things, and I've given myself an indication of perhaps a few grasses there, an indication of a few individual hairs there in his mane, and sort of the overall balance really. So now what I'm doing, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, he's at his next stage. So I'm now coming back and, making those colours deeper still, looking again at the reference. Every time you sort of do a layer and you come back, you see something different when you come back and revisit it. Now, as I always say, it's totally up to you as to how refined you want to take your painting, how painterly you want it to be, and how far you want to bring it up and how realistic you want to be. But the basis of practically every painting is the same. It's those levels of light and dark, and those values. They're so important. I can't stress enough. And the thing is, obviously, we've introduced new colours, and once you introduce new colours, it then affects what's next to it. So it's a constant process of sort of going backwards and forwards and adjusting things as you go. So what I'm going to do now is I'll pop a little bit of music on for a little bit, and you can watch me sort of coming in and basically going through the same process, maybe adding a couple more colours as I go, but going through the same process, blending a little less now as I go, using the pastels to help me blend more and more as I go through. All right, so I'll let you listen to some music, and I'll go and clear my throat, and I'll pop back in a mo. And so as you saw a few more layers there. Now I'm just coming in with a little bit of this gorgeous golden yellow. The pale value that I put over on that mane on his left hand side was a little cool, and I really wanted to capture those lovely golden reds and, goldens through those russety reds. So I've added a little bit more colour, looking at my reference photo, seeing where all those lightest areas are, just catching the edges of his mane and things. So popped in with a little bit of gold, and as you saw, a little bit more red there, just bringing out the colours as I see them, and, sort of how I feel I want the painting to progress. Now, the colours I'm using over to the right-hand side in general are cooler because they're in the shadows. And as I come over to this, to this left-hand side, as you look at it, these colours are warming up. As I say, we really want to get that sunshine coming through his mane and things. And it's kind of got to the point that I think, yep, okay, again, I'm happy with the balance on him for the time being. I'll come back and revisit him. But I want to get a bit more of this background in at this moment in time, to make sure that, I've got a good balance with what's going on behind him as well as him, so that he's not going to suddenly feel that he's just plopped on the paper. And that's it. I tend to work across the painting all the time, rather than working meticulously from one corner to another. I go backwards and forwards and do things as I see them. And now, obviously in the reference photo, the background is very, very dark, but you do still see, as in his mane and things, you see those subtle changes. There's a few bushes in the background there, and I want to give the feeling of it. I'm not hugely worried if a bush isn't quite in the right place, but I do want to give that feeling that he's walking through those plains and things. So I'm working with those darker tones, that lovely the precious Terry Ludwig eggplant, and those burgundies, and then in my lighter areas I'm also using those burgundies, but putting some lovely oranges on them, and bringing those up too. The mixture of orange and burgundy is such a lovely colour. It just just really goes together well. And so now what you're seeing me doing, now I've got a little bit more feeling of the background. I want to keep the background very loose. I don't want to get too het up about about it. The focus of this painting for me is that gorgeous lion, but making him feel as if he's coming out of that background. So the background's fairly loose. Not going to be putting too much more detail in that. These foreground grasses, I'll be coming in with my pencil and things, and that's what I'm doing now. Is I'm now going through. I've got all that basis of colour going on, and I'm now going through putting my pastels down in a little bit of a firmer fashion. To pull out some individual hairs and things, and to get that shape. Sometimes using my pastel pencils, sometimes using the edge of a soft pastel. I tend to work in both pastel pencils and soft pastels at the same time, because I feel that both of them they lend something different to the painting. You know, you can get some really you can obviously do this all in soft pastels. You might find it a little awkward around the eyes and things where things are so small. So that's in general why I tend to use pastel pencils as well, because they just help me. And, you know, you just as well make your life easy if you can. So now what you're seeing me doing is using my pastel pencils, and I'm pulling out some individual hairs now. Every now and again, I'm using my pastel pencil to blend, as I say, make an area perhaps a little bit darker where I can, you know, where I can do it a little bit more subtly. You know, the pastel sticks themselves, obviously they're quite chunky. And as I say, sometimes it's easier just to get in with that pastel pencil, but not necessary. You can definitely do this with all pastels, soft pastels, if you want to, or you can do it all in soft pencils, you know, in the pastel pencils, whichever way you want to go. But as I say, I love going between them, because I feel that they offer different things to the painting. And so I hope you're enjoying the video. If you do, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to keep bringing you some more videos of my paintings coming together, and hopefully you can learn something along the way. And obviously, you know, if learning is your thing and you really would like to learn how to create pastels, obviously there's only a limited time that I've got here on YouTube. But if this painting's over on my Patreon channel, so consider coming over and joining me over there. We're obviously, you see me not at quite such a breakneck speed, in fact, nowhere near. And I slow right down and go through my process, talking you through and explaining you through, you know, what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So yeah, consider joining me over there, or if not, please do give this a thumbs up, and any comments you have and any questions, I'm always more than happy to answer them for you. And so we're almost at the finish line now, and you've seen me sort of going backwards and forwards with my pencil now, breaking up that mass of that mane. Gorgeous deep mane there, and you know, just going through, breaking up those you know, those areas there, just bringing out a few individual hairs and things, and you know, sort of adding a little bit of you know, colour to draw one. You know, sometimes I'm going in with my pastel pencil in a soft fashion, and you know, just to sort of tease it from one to the other, and other times going in with a very definite mark. As you know, as I say, working between my soft pastels and my pastel pencils, just depending on what area I'm going in. And I think for this line, you know, I'm pretty much there. You know, I'm pretty happy. As I say, it's not a portrait, so it doesn't matter if it's 100% accurate, but I just wanted to get the feel of this lion. And, you know, that sunshine, that last sunshine of the day, hitting his mane through and him lurking out the shadows. So I'm pretty happy that I've got that, you know, and the, you know, just putting these final little details in. I'm going to come in a minute and in a minute and add a little bit of sparkle. Now, unfortunately, you won't be able to particularly see it on here. It's so busy, and because my board for videoing is upright, it doesn't actually work. So I have to go off and do it on the flat. But you do see me here briefly in just a moment, and I come in and basically I've got one of my soft pastels, a little gold sparkly one, and I've got a little craft knife, and I just go through and just scrape off ever so lightly, you know, a few little sparkly bits there. Be careful when you do it, and obviously make sure you've got no wind around. And if you find that it goes in a place, you know, just blow it off and stand back for a couple of seconds. You know, if it ends up in a place that you don't want, you need to take care and look where you want those little sparkly things, and don't overdo them. You know, it's very easy to get a little bit, you know, carried away with them, like it is with the grasses. Once you're happy with where you sort of sprinkled your sparkle sparkly dust or whatever, then just take your piece of glassine paper and just rub over the top of it. And literally then that will sink that into the paper, and then you've got your little sparkles just to add that little bit extra. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. I do appreciate you spending some of your time with me. I do hope you've enjoyed seeing our gorgeous line come together. And as I always say, if you've got any comments, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see how you're finding these videos, whether you're enjoying them. I obviously want to bring you things that you enjoy. So please do leave me comments, any feedback you have, or if you've got any questions, always happy to answer for them. So I wish you a lovely week. Have a lovely time, and hopefully you get to do some painting. And if you do, happy painting.